All right, folks, welcome to, I don't know, we don't have a name for this yet, Chats with That One Love. My name is Law Masongo Debo, so that's Law like Law and Order Law School. This is my beautiful wife.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shayna Masongo Debo.
Yes, and we just wanted a chance because we're coming up on our 1 year.
Yes.
1 year of marriage, and so we wanted a chance to connect with some other couples, find out what they're doing, how they got to where they are, and just have conversations about relationships, about love. And so we have actually some special guests with us. This is our first guest, and so truly an honor. And so I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Mike and Lady Kisha. Let them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who they are.
Well, we had number one, thank you for even allowing us to be your first guest. Like I'm honored and humbled. And so I will go ahead and apologize ahead of time. We're really trifling and ratchet behind the scenes.
He's really trifling and ratchet.
And this is why we picked him. Yeah.
Trying to put me in that category. You know, I'm married into the triflingness.
Yeah,
you had to know. You had to know though. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, don't let the smooth taste fool you.
I was aware.
Definitely trifling at the core. But I'm Pastor Mike Scruggs, Senior Pastor, Light of the World Church. Like Kisha, this is my girlfriend, my wife, my mistress, my concubine, all wrapped up in one. We have been married now 17 years. We'll be 18 in February. The only marriage that this is it. This is until death do us part. If she decides she want to leave me, I'm gonna move in the basement. The new guy can stay upstairs. We'll just kind of split the bills and figure it out. This is it. So
we trying to make it to Monday.
Yes,
so that's
absolutely.
We're trying to make it to Monday. So we tell people
day by
all
day.
the time, it's a day by day process, struggle. You have to work one day at a time. I can't worry about tomorrow. I got to worry about today.
Yeah. So we're both born and raised Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, since my mama had me, this is where we call home. Is kind of how we operate. Two wonderful children. I don't know what else you need. Yeah, that's pretty much all.
That's good.
That's great.
And so I guess we can start off with how you met, right? So both of y'all from Cincinnati. How did y'all meet? And how did you know that you wanted to take this to the next level as far as marriage, as far as starting a family?
So
our stories are different.
Okay.
So I'm gonna let him start.
Yes.
Because I already knew what was about to happen. So I'm gonna let him start, and then I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Yeah, because you seen her look at me with that lie. So I was formulating the lie in my mouth. But so here's the situation. So 7th grade. Walnut Hills High School. Shout out to all my Eagles.
Yeah, go Eagles.
We meet in gym class in 7th grade in gym. I think during swim time. We had to swim back in 7th grade, and so I seen her in 7th grade. And I was like, that's it. Like this is it. Let's close the door. Let's open up the doors of the church. This is it. Ain't nothing else. I gotta have her finger waves and nameplate gold chain. That's all I knew.
That's it. Yeah.
She had it. She had me, and so So yeah, I mean, like I said, we've known each other since 7th grade. We were friends throughout all high school. So we never dated in high school.
High school sweethearts.
Yeah, but we were like, that was my girl. Like, so we'd call each other up, kick it, talk, whatever, go out, get some meat. It wasn't, anything outside. I think part of it, she wasn't allowing me to get past that. She friend zoned me a couple times.
He didn't know Jesus for real either. Let's just put it all the way out there. He did not know Jesus.
Yeah. And that was big back then?
So, and see, I was saved in high school.
Okay.
So he was not.
Yeah, I will say she was like the first authentic Christian that I knew, saved. Okay. And so I was trifling, and so that's where.
It don't mean I ain't had no issues, but I knew Jesus for real, and I was trying to date people that knew Jesus. So he sort of knew him, but
Yeah. I knew what neighborhood Jesus lived in, but I
had his number for real. Like, I heard him, like, I don't know him. Like, we ain't cool.
Yeah, we was acquaintances.
So it was. So let him tell it. I wanted him since 7th grade, but I had no idea that he even liked me in 7th grade. Like, so we really didn't start dating until after college. So like once he graduated from college, like I went to his graduation because again, we were friends. I didn't even look at him in that manner. So until after that, I guess I did friend zone him. We actually, start looking, further than just being friends. But I think the being friends part was important because he actually started preaching in high school, like when we were seniors.
It was right after graduation.
Like right after we graduated. Yeah, he actually accepted the call because he was like his trial sermon. I'm like, yo, trial who? What? So it was kind of interesting, but to see like his transition and like his growth, and like we have always been friends, like really good friends. So I think that is a testament to a good relationship, is being friends and being real, true friends, like with no expectations, not friends with benefits, like real friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. If she would have gave me benefits early, I probably would have changed it.
We wouldn't have been married.
I would have messed it up, but yeah, I probably still went for it. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Lady Kisha, let's get your side of how y'all met and how you grew into this, right?
Yeah, so yes, 7th grade. So all of that is true. We did meet in 7th grade, gym class. So that was, but it was like, hey, that's Mike. So it wasn't like, oh, love at first sight. We saw each other and God was like, and the heavens opened up. And then I knew that was my husband. Like I literally had no idea. And actually, I was engaged to someone else before he and I actually got engaged. So I thought I was going to marry someone else. And, like right at the 11th hour, God was revealing some things to me that wasn't the person I was supposed to be with. And so, during that whole entire time, we were friends. But at that moment, I decided like I'm solely about to I'm going to solely work on my relationship with God. I'm going to concentrate on that. So that's what I did. Like I concentrated specifically. So I wasn't dating anyone. I was just working on my relationship. And it's amazing how when you do that, then God be like, hey, and I'll be like, I wasn't even looking for a spouse, or I wasn't even looking for a relationship. But through working through that, God actually showed him to me. So it was kind of one of those where even our friends was like, what? Y'all get married? Because, Walnut like a cult for real. Like once you go, the Walnut, we all stick together. We Eagles. So all of our friends, like most of them that we were friends with since 7th grade, like we're still friends with those people. Like we're still on the same team. We still support each other. We still push. So yeah, so that's what happened. So like not until after college and all of that did I have any idea that he was supposed to be my spouse at all. And then I wasn't even sure. I was asking God like Mike that I've always known, like that Mike. And then God was like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's make it happen.
So I want to dig into that real quick. How does someone make it out the friend zone? Because friend zone is usually a wasteland, right?
Yeah.
People don't come back from that. So knowing somebody since 7th grade all the way to now actually decreases your chances a lot of times, right?
It was a lot of dead bodies in there.
Yeah.
A lot of bones. So I was out there with my compass trying to figure out how to get the exit sign.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think perseverance on one end, and then kind of keep in contact. And like I said, she's known, like we've known each other since we were 12. So it wasn't like trying to be disingenuous about who we were as people. And I think, it just became a time where we started getting closer and saw each other in different lights. Where we're like, you know what? Like, all right. Cause from a physical standpoint, it was, I always thought she was cute. And she always thought I was fine.
Think he was,
she thought I was fine. It was just,
she
thought I was fine.
For sure.
I mean, so the physical part was always, I think, there. I think it was an opportunity where we started seeing each other as we developed, grew, et cetera, matured, and saw the emotional side and, the spiritual side and, mental, et cetera, allowing all those other factors to kind of come into play.
Okay.
Yeah, I think though too, like when you're at an adolescent stage,
don't know that other stuff matters.
You don't look at any of those things, so it's like growing up, I wasn't looking at all of those things. Yes, like I joke, but I was really like, I'm not gonna waste my time dating somebody that I wouldn't never consider myself marrying, because I felt like that's a waste of time. So you do have people that become high school sweethearts and end up marrying those people. So I'm like, I'm not gonna waste my time when you're on a whole completely level than what I'm on, because I was a mature child, you know what I'm saying, because I grew up around grown people. So while most people like going out to the club and they drinking, like I never had that stage in my life because I was always around older people, and I saw how that affected them. So I was like, yeah, I'm one of those, I don't have to touch the stove and know it's hot. Like, I'm not that kid. I'm like, you told me it was hot, I believe you. I'm done.
I want to feel the fire.
He was,
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in like,
Show me.
did that burn my finger? Wait a minute. Maybe not. Let me touch the other one. But I
want to feel it. I want to feel it twice.
So I'm like, he on the twice. I wasn't that person. I get one whooping, I'm like, I ain't like with that whooping. He got a lot of whooping. So that's, opposites attract, but it was that thing. So I think, like, once you get older and then you start seeing people in a different light. So, like, first off, like, when I went to his graduation, he was like the perfect gentleman, because in order for me to attend the graduation, I worked in the evening. I had to drive up that night. So I actually stayed in his apartment. So, like, I took my clothes to, work, because he graduated from Ohio State. That's an 1.5-hour drive. Like, and he was like, I'm going to breakfast with, like, somebody from the church, like one of the deacons. He was like, you can just go with me. It was like, I don't know, some guy early, like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I'm not driving up there at 5 a.m. It's a wrap. So, like, I went up. He gave me his bed. He didn't try anything. Like, we were friends, so it was kind of one of those where, like, I'm like, oh, Mike was like the perfect person. I'm sure it was a setup, but it was genuine. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure it was a setup, but it was genuine. And then even after that, like, we just continued to, like, talk and, like, explore different things. And I think at that point realized that we had more things in common than what we had when we were younger. So then it's like, oh, okay. And then we're talking about other things, and then dreams and, like, goals. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, like, we moving in a different direction than when we were children. And I think at that point you kind of look at them a little different, but in the same time, we've been friends that whole time. So, like, it's one of those where, like, I know he's not a bad person, but I'm like, man, you've evolved into somebody else. And it's like taking that time to get to know that person and realize that he's not the same person he was when we were children.
Yeah. So why should someone settle down? That you said some really good things, but, like, why should that single person decide to settle down?
I think for us, part of what we want to do in life, and that's why I'm honored to be a part of this, and even seeing y'all cute and all this other wonderful stuff. So we love seeing couples come together. We promote Black love, but we want to try to make marriage cool again. I think the idea and the misnomer throughout time is like, oh, this is the ball and chain, and when you get married, all the fun departs, and it's a drag and all this other stuff. But I think it's the complete opposite, where I think freedom begins with marriage. Like, you literally, like, are able to be with this person and enjoy life and develop and grow, and then and
have sex. Let's talk about sex, because you're not supposed to be having sex before. So, yeah, like,
they ain't gotta leave. I mean, everybody can stay.
Because we still Christians.
Yeah.
We supposed to not be having sex, so now it's free. And then because some people, I mean, we be out way real. We know people have sex before they get married. We know you're not supposed to. We know you try before you buy it. We know it happens. However, it's guilt-free. So once you get married, you can have all kinds of sex. The marriage bed is undefiled. You can try whatever you like. It's free, and then you don't have to feel guilty about it. And it should not stop. Like, you shouldn't have all kinds of good sex when you're single, and then when you get married, not have sex. Like, so that happens for some people, but that's not the way God designed it to be. So, like, we have lots of sex, and I think, like, that's a benefit of marriage. And everybody should be having that. But I think it's that whole ball and chain, things change once you get married, but it shouldn't. It should be more exciting. Like, what I look forward to is building an empire with this man, because we actually feel like you're supposed to leave an inheritance to your children's children. So it's like, what are we building up for our family? So, like, we be in go get it stage, like in mode, like, look, what can we leave for our kids? So we have conversations with them about what we are building for them and what our expectations are for them. So I think, like, it's somebody I get to build a team with, and it's legit. You know what I'm saying? Like, a legit team. Like, it ain't a illegitimate relationship. You know what I'm saying? This is genuine.
Yeah, and I think the Bible talks about, it says, woe to the person that when you fall, and you're by yourself, there's no one there to help pick you up. And so I think that kind of alludes also to, when you talk about this union, being able to, not to say that everybody has to be married. It's the idea that when you are in this relationship, that you have somebody that is there to help pick you up, to have your back, ride or die. This is it. Like if we get into a fight, is we get into a fight.
Right.
It ain't I'm gonna get beat up and she take off. It's
it's like
no,
nah, we
either
gonna win together or we gonna lose together. But that's why the vows say for better or for worse. And I think we always stand in that for better category and we forget about the worst category. I mean, there are times where we miss the mark. There are times when I need him to pick me up. You know, so that's the thing. So you have that team mentality. And I think a lot of people have a different perception because they've only seen bad marriages.
Yeah.
So, you know, so your perception is, I don't want to get married because when my auntie was married, this happened and she got a divorce. But that's because the only marriages that you've seen were ones that didn't succeed. So the only example that you have is a negative one. How about you look at a marriage that's striving, or people that's been 60 years and they're like, man, I love my spouse. Those people that's been married for 60 years and when one of them died, the other one died because they can't live without them. They died because they heart broke. So that's what you need to look at. And I think for so many people, they only have negative examples, ones that didn't work, or they watch too much TV.
Yeah, and I'll toss this too from the other perspective. We don't want any singles watching to get married before it's time for you to get married. And so we don't want any singles to rush into a relationship because they think they need to be in one. Because I think there are people who are addicted to company. And so they haven't taken enough time to be alone in terms of figuring themselves out before jumping into a relationship. And so with those individuals, I say take all that time of figuring yourself out, build up yourself. This is different from just dating, you know, a whole bunch of people. It's figuring out who you are and knowing what you got to do to become your best self, and then say, okay, where's this, you know, what will this now look like for me in the relationship realm, as opposed to trying to jump into something and you know you're not prepared for it, and then, you know, it ultimately,
and then it doesn't end.
Yeah, it ultimately doesn't work out.
Yeah, because I think, like, to speak to, you know, what he's saying also is that if you take the time and become whole first, then you're not bringing all of this baggage into the relationship that's going to hinder you from growing and succeeding. So what happens is if I don't get whole and I'm bringing all of this baggage and you bringing all of this baggage, we can't succeed because there's too much other stuff in the relationship. So it's like being healed from, you know, past relationships, or being healed from yourself or generational curses or things that are keeping you from giving your whole self to that person. So it's kind of one of those where you got to not jump into it because it's work. Because people you see the end result, or you see us when we out, but you won't see us when we at home and I'm downstairs and he upstairs and we not talking today, you know, because it was a bad day. So I'll holler at you tomorrow when I like you, or when I feel like I can talk to you. So it's kind of one of those where, like, you got to be with somebody that you can work through the bumps with.
Yep.
So I want to talk about dating as a Christian. So you brought up an interesting story of you going up to see him at Ohio State, and he was a perfect gentleman, right? So I hang with a lot of savages. Let's start there, and that could be seen as a risk, as far as, and I let me speak for the guy savage side of, you really want this person. She come up there, and you know all your book. Did you get it? Did you do something right? And so you have this choice where it's like, all right, she's here. I'm going to take my shot, or I'm going to go the gentleman route, right? Especially if you're trying to get out a friend zone. I think I want to dive into that and see why you chose to take the route you did as far as being a gentleman, and then kind of jump into what does dating as a Christian look like when it comes to the pressures of sex, when it comes to how you're supposed to navigate that, but still assert, you know, what all our dads and uncles have told us of how you're supposed to get this girl, get this woman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a great question, because being a Christian does not absolve us from temptation.
Or hormones.
Yeah,
like, just
absolutely.
Be
if she was cute to me in 7th grade, she was cute to me in college, and so it was still that idea of, all right, she's in my apartment. Even though she's sleeping in my bed, I'm sleeping on the futon in the other room or whatever. It was kind of like that scene in Love Jones where she like, you hot?
Yeah.
It's still kind of, you know, trying to maintain, you know, even those thoughts, feelings, etc. But you're like, all right, if I jump the gun on this, what will the after effects look like? And I think that's what oftentimes we don't necessarily pay attention to, what that may bring about later on because we try to live in the moment. And I think that was where the difference maker was. I was like, all right, let me just kind of fall back because I don't want to mess something up that has the potential to become something better. And so even if it doesn't become something better, I still, I don't think you don't lose out on that, on that thing. And a guy's mind is like, oh man, I never get that. And so, man, I wish I'd have got that. But it's like, all right, truth be told, what did you really lose other than just that natural feeling? Yes. And I think we tend to forfeit the natural, we forfeit our souls for the natural feeling. Mm. And one of the things that I bring up is that when you talk about sex, as I kind of digress quickly, the sex is one of those things where it's all of you. So it incorporates every part of you, including your mind, body, spirit, soul. And there's no condom big enough for your soul. While we may be able to cover it up physically, we're now wounded and damaged from a spiritual and emotional standpoint. And that's why even, trying to break up with somebody that you had sex with becomes rougher because you've been intertwined with them. And now it's like, all right, now I got to bust the windows out your car. Now I gotta hide. Now I gotta hide in the bushes. Now I gotta stop you because I'm now connected to you in a way that I wasn't supposed to be connected, minus marriage.
Right. And not to mention real quick, and I'll let you finish, messing that person up for somebody else. Mm-hmm. Because we don't think about that. So then you take your moment, so you like, oh, okay, well, she here, and then he'd be like, let's have sex. Well, that's not something that I wanted to do. So now, you didn't got me in a vulnerable space. You didn't convince me to do something that I didn't want to do, even though I said I'm not trying to have sex before I get married. But then you try to force me into a box, and then I make a decision that I don't want to make. Now I really don't like you because you forced me into a position that I didn't want to be in, and now you've scarred me for somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's like not even realizing that one decision does not just affect that moment, but moments later.
Yeah. And I think from a dating perspective, we typically teach to date on assignment. And that's literally understanding that you're dating somebody that has the potential of being a spouse. If they don't have the potential of being a spouse, why waste your time with dating them? Kind of, put them in that position. Like, all right, well, I already know that this ain't going to go nowhere other than the bed. If I'm trying to stay out of that, then ain't no sense in me talking to you right now.
Right.
Let me keep it pushing because this will ultimately lead to a bad place for me. And it's not because you know the other person's motives. It's typically because you know your own motives. You're like, you know what? Like, nah, let me just keep pushing it. Let me keep walking because this ain't gonna be a good look. I already see it coming. And so you just try to make sure you put yourself in the best position possible that doesn't affect you later on. Mm-hmm. And so it's dating on assignment. And figuring out and determining what it is that you actually want, which I think a lot of times people don't actually know what that looks like, where they say, hey, yeah, I want to be married, and we have this, these dreams and this, what television tells us, but it's like, all right, when it comes down to who you're actually looking for and or praying for, we don't know what that list looks like.
Or have a list, because that's the thing, because people be like, well, I'm gonna go out and date, but you don't even know what you're looking for. You don't have a list, you don't have, so I'm like, you just gonna randomly pick, like, just get a dart and be like, him, right there. And I'm like, and God be like, Lord Jesus, what I'm gonna do with him?
Yeah.
But you should have a list. You should have some qualifications, some specifications, some something. You don't just go out there blind and dating whoever, be like, I just need a free meal, because then it becomes, like he said, you dating on assignment. You shouldn't be dating just to see who you can get a free meal from, or who you can get to pay a bill, or who you can, like, I should be literally saying, who does God want me to be with? Yeah. Or not. Because if I'm in a position where I'm like Paul and I learned to be content and I'm not supposed to be with nobody, then concentrate on your relationship with God. Don't just go out sleeping with everybody and you already know you ain't supposed to be married. You're like, I'm just going to get some from wherever I can get some from. Like, that ain't God's best for your life. Walking around with all these extra soul ties.
Yeah, and I definitely, one of the clearest answers I got from God was regarding who I wasn't supposed to marry. Because, like I said, Kisha, she's good. She's sanitized and saved. I was trifling, so I had a team that I was choosing from. I was like, all right, I have my starting five. I was like, all right, this is the point guard. This is my shooting guard. I got small forward, power forward, center. And so I'm looking down my squad. Yeah, I ain't get to the I had the person in the middle. So I was like, all right, God. I was like, which, as at that stage, I was like, all right, I'm looking to if I didn't
He's trying not to burn.
Yeah, if I didn't settle down, I was gonna knock down all of Cincinnati. So I was like, all right, God, we got to figure out what this is gonna look like. And
he a preacher, so you already you can't feed that stereotype.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So you trying to be holy for Jesus, but then you at a point where like I've been holy for a while. My hormones is because we being real, because people trying to act like you know his book is I'm holy but I'm horny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's real life right there. We try to act like just because we're Christians that we don't have real emotions just like everybody else, or real feelings or real struggles. Like just be all the way real. It's a struggle. And so it's kind of one of them where you be like, all right, God, well, I feel like I'm in a position where I'm ready, or, you know, I don't need to be pastor nobody's church. And like most single pastors, and you sleeping with half of the congregation and you leading people astray. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna need you to get your life right, but you have to realize who you are and where your limits are and where your lines are.
Absolutely. So I want to take it to another place is really big in our relationship is finances. So can you both talk about how you were able to get on the same page with finances, and then also like how has that evolved throughout your relationship?
Yeah, no, that is a major piece that we kind of, you know, so two factors that typically lead to divorce. Number one is communication. Number two is finances.
We had issues with both.
Absolutely. And so and typically, you know, number three is communication about the finances. So that's one of those. I think finances becomes a dating question. Like as soon as you start getting serious with somebody, but hey, so how are your finances?
And your credit.
What your credit score?
It's having those conversations, because I'm gonna tell you, like, so because we were already in the church, so we're dating, he's preaching, I've been to church my whole life, we budgeting, we're tithing. So when we get to this point where we're saying we're getting married, they ask us those questions, but there was no like marriage counseling extensive. It was like a group session, like, oh, y'all seem like y'all got it together, and then that was it. So then when we get married, I'm like, we get a call like his Discover card wasn't getting paid, and I'm like, why are you not paying your bill? And he was like, they knew I ain't pay my bills. Why they give me a Discover card? He was like, let them come get their money. I was like, oh my God.
Cincinnati.
I found out his was like under the toilet. Like, I was like, oh my God. So like, I'm like, we got a bad house. I'm like, we got a bad house in my name. I was like, oh no, you can't handle the finances. So it's having a conversation about what money's coming in, budgeting, kind of getting those things in order, you know, getting accounts set up, because it was also a conversation where I had to have a conversation with him, like, you know, this debit card is attached to our checking account, like, because it would just be like, you just out there buying stuff. I'm like, yeah, now, sir. I was like, oh, but we did not have that conversation though.
Yeah.
I'm the budgeting, you know, put everything down, you get your tithe, your savings, you know, I got an Excel spreadsheet, he don't know nothing about Excel, but you know, like all of that. And then I'm like, what in the world have I gotten myself into? But there was no conversation. Mm-hmm. So like, that is important. Like you have a conversation about how do you pay your bills, your finances, what does your credit look like? And then it was like, so, cause I spent a lot of time helping him, bringing him over to this side, but you also allow for the person who handles the finances better to handle the finances. Like, we're not about to split the bills and then you don't pay bills.
You don't.
Like, no, you put the money in the account, I'm gonna pay all the bills. We're not splitting nothing because you're not responsible, you know, and he knows that.
I don't even care. So it ain't even,
right, no, and that you see he ain't said a word. He said a word because he know that's true. But we had the conversation after, and it was like, look, if we're gonna succeed in this marriage, you need to let the person who handles the finances better handle the finances so we can get ahead. So then it was like, then he started asking, like, can I buy this? Not this week, but next week when these bills are paid, you can do that. And there's no pushback. Like, you know, people are like, well, this is my money, I should be able to do. Like, we won. This is our finances. This is our credit. So if my credit score up here and this now, we take an average, you done brought me down. I'm going to break you up. Yes. So it was one of them where like, now, no, we need to be, you know, we need to be in a place because we need to be iron sharpening iron.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened with the finances. So like I took over, but it was an understanding that we had to have. But finance, and it's serious, because that's where a lot of people miss the mark, because it's certain things that aren't paid or not taken care of, because it's like, well, no, this my money, this your money. It's like, well, no, like this is our marriage, this is our house, these are our kids, and we don't believe in step kids. So if you had some and I had some, these are our kids, because it ain't no step bills. Those real bills.
Yeah, all the way. And I think she said she mentioned something important, and it's the fact that when you do get married, it is all of our money. It's not a separate yours and his, hers, etc. It's all. I don't care who worked more hours that week
or make more money.
It's all ours, and so it's everything that comes with that. Once again, it's the two become one, and so that includes financial accounts. So it's understanding that before the I do's.
Yeah.
So if you have issues with that, then you might take that step back to say, all right, well, I'm not comfortable enough to let nobody else handle my money. And it's like, all right, well, that's fine. That's nothing wrong with that. But just don't walk into the marriage with that same mentality.
Right, because are you okay with that? Because it's also that mentality where like some men are like, well, if she makes more than me, then I'm uncomfortable with that. Or she's like, well, if you bring 40 to the table and I make 80, you can only have my 40. The rest of this 40 is mine. You bring 40, I bring 40. So it's like, well, if that's your mentality, that's fine. But do you guys agree with that? Because we come from the mentality that we're one and all go in the same pot. Whether I bring 60, whether it's 70-30 or 50-50, it all goes into the same pot for the betterment of our marriage. But if that's not the sentiment, that's a discussion pre-marriage. Because if y'all can't get on one accord, that marriage is not going to work.
Yeah, because if she rich before marriage, now it's we rich.
Right. It ain't like I'm rich and you ain't got nothing, because what happens is that's going to affect your marriage. You don't make no money. I'm bringing in all of this. I'm paying all the bills. Like, so it's like, nope. So we need to handle that, because then if I got the mentality that I'm the main person in the marriage, and then I know y'all discuss, but if I'm making more and I feel like I got more power, but I'm in a Christian relationship and he's the head of the household, my money don't make me the head of the household. He's still the head of the household. So that's a struggle. So how do you handle that? You need to talk about it before, and then you have to understand where your position is.
So one of the best pieces of advice we got as we were trying to figure out, because when we're about to get married, we're like, so what are we gonna do with this money, right? And so I had to like really think of like, what's the best system? Is she gonna be cool with? Because I was for an all-in pot, right? But at the same time, I understood that I work in education, and so my check doesn't look the same as her check, who's in the private sector, right? So I'm like, I'm cool with one pot, but she putting in more in the pot than me, right? So what does that look like? And I think the best piece of advice that we got in that area is, in this marriage, y'all have shared long-term goals, right? That you're trying to build upon, and careers change. And so we have to get out of thinking of right now of, oh, I'm putting in this much and you putting in this much, but understanding that jobs will be gotten, promotions will be here and there. And if it was to flip, right, and I start balling out of control, does that change what that structure looks like? And that helped us come up with that system a lot. And so I just want to give you a timeline of us, because I want to put in context, when is the best time to have this conversation? Yeah. Right. And so we let's say we start officially dating 2015, right? And then I proposed at the end of 17, and we get married in 19, right? Where in that should I be having this conversation with my significant other about what does money look like? Yeah.
I want to say probably before the engagement.
I was going to say the same thing. When you know it's serious, when you feel like it may be going in that direction, because if it's going in that direction, like, man, I'm really feeling him, and you like, I think I'm going to propose to her, or you talking about her to your friends, like, man, I think she the one. So before that proposal, because it's a lot harder when you announce to everybody, y'all, it's like on Facebook status, like in a relationship, and then 5 days later,
you got to take it down.
Or you not anymore.
You got to take it off. Just take it off.
So don't put yourself in that situation, because if we have it after and we are on completely different pages, and now we're not getting engaged because of some things that we need to work on, I feel like it's it's pre-engagement, because then you know that, you know, you're on the same page at that point.
I tell we have a single smart group, shameless plug, that meets once a month, and so I tell our singles all the time, they are much easier to handle than our couple small group, only because with our couples, typically, if I did not perform their marriage or do their, you know, premarital counseling, they're hustling backwards. And so they they're basically coming into it with issues that were already preset and that they never got handled, never got fixed, never got dealt with. And so now they're 3, 4, 5 years into it, and now they're trying to figure out how to handle it. And that was our story. That was our situation.
Yeah, we was on the job training. Like, it was like, we first got married, I was like, Lord. So it was like one thing and another thing and another thing. Yeah. And we didn't have like a married couple who was tenured to bounce stuff off of. So we was literally like in the wilderness in the job training, you know. So, and we always say that too, like, you should have a Christian couple, not somebody that don't know the principles, because they always like, girl, leave them. So like, you know, a Christian couple that you can bounce stuff off of. But yeah, you definitely need to have those conversations before, because the thing is that I can walk away from this. Mm-hmm. I'm single. We had these conversations. It start going way left. And you like, man, I thought he was the one. And then the more we talk, the more I know he not. Mm-hmm. And then you like, so you can get off the ship. If you married, you made that vow with God. You said for better or for worse, I'm gonna need you to start working on it. You can't just jump ship every time something get difficult. Yeah. So for singles watching, this is free game. This is free game. Sets you up for life, trying to put you in the best position possible. For married couples, we can work on it. We'll figure it out. Like, start right now. Get your finances together. Like, start today. Get your budget. You need an Excel spreadsheet, we'll send you an email.
we got templates.
We got
Hey.
One thing, Lady Kisha, that you had talked about was the male role and being the head of the household. What does that mean? Because I know, like, growing up, especially if you was raised by strong women, that male being the head of the household is a little different. So what does that mean when you say that? Or a single person who had no man, because it is one of those where if you had to play that strong role because there was an absent father, or, you know, there was an absent male figure in the house. So it's funny because we talk about this all the time, because when you talk, we call submission the S word, you know, because people, you know, you say it and they be like, I ain't about to submit to no man. That's like a cuss word. You say submission and they be like, oh my God, I'm not doing that. But it's the way you look at the word, though, because the way we describe it is I'm yielding. I'm not being eliminated. I'm not disappearing. You know what I'm saying? So what happens is that I am allowing him to be in front, but I'm just yielding in behind. I'm not stopping. I don't stop being who I am. I'm still a strong woman, but I just allow him to take the hits. So he's sitting, so the devil is shooting arrows, but since he's here, he's getting hit. So because he's getting hit, he should be able to make the decisions because he's taking the hit. So it's not a word where it's like, I stop becoming. And I think that's what happens is when people hear that word, they say, you know, I got to follow him around like a puppy and I got to do everything for him and I stop being who I am. No, I just yield to him and let him lead me. But that doesn't mean that we don't make decisions together. That doesn't mean that we don't have conversations. That just means that if we get to a point where we disagree, he gets to make the final decision because he's the one who gets the arrow. Yeah, and that does at the same time, and those are on big decisions. So those are, you know, where we live at, where the school kids go to, major financial decisions. But at the same time, even with those, that doesn't mean that women don't have a say-so and an influence on. Yeah, because I still pick the house. Like, it was literally my top 3. Which one you want? But I like all of them. And women have been influencing men for centuries, since the beginning of time. I call it the power to pee. That's my trifling side coming out. And so you have feminine ways that can determine what you want us to do. And at the same time, make us feel like we made the decision, even though it's what you told us you wanted us to do. And so you have that opportunity, and you know that God innate
privileged to be able to dictate that. But it is, like I said, when it comes down to those final decisions.
Yeah, and it's
we pull the
biblical.
trigger.
So, I mean, it's a hierarchy. Now, and we discussed that, though, because if you picked a Christian man, you would be okay with that. So what happens is you don't do your research, or you don't pray and get God's answer. You make your own, and then you get mad with your choice. But if I'm looking at the hierarchy and I'm saying, hey, God, is this the man that you want me to be with? And the God is the head of him, then I should have no problems with him leading me, because he's leading me as God leads him.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and that's a good point, because we all submit to somebody. And so what the danger becomes is if you are caught up with somebody who doesn't submit to anybody. We all, like all of us are submitted in some form or fashion to somebody. I even, as a pastor, I still answer to I have a pastor that I go to. And when he tells me my stuff is wrong and my stuff stinks, I submit to him, just like, other people submit to me. Just so it's a reciprocal thing that takes place throughout relationships in general, not just married boyfriend, girlfriend type scenario, but we all are in submission to, or should be in submission to somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I think we look at it as a negative thing. Yeah. It's not supposed to be a negative thing. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be a positive thing. If I have a good Christian man who's making good Christian decisions because he's praying about it and he's doing that, I'm going to slide right into position, because I'm like, man, I'm excited that I got this man making these decisions and making God moves in my life, providing a vision for my family. Like, I should be excited about that. But what happens is a lot of times we pick people who don't have vision. And what does the Bible say? If you don't have a vision, then the people perish. Then you wonder why the relationship is not working. Well, you kind of picked wrong. Technically, you picked and you didn't ask God's opinion.
I got you. Yeah. You ain't vet them out. So speaking of the vetting process and the folks in our lives, in-laws. And so in-laws / the relationship of an influence from outside, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to touch on that just because we, our parents, our guardians, our family, our village that raises us is so important. And so they also, in some roundabout way, teach us about relationships, whether that's verbally or through us watching them. Mm-hmm. What was y'all experience as far as handling the pressure or influence from in-laws or from outside family in your relationship, and what kind of things did you have to take heed to or unlearn or distance yourself from?
We'll give our rule first and then kind of backtrack. So our rule as it relates to in-laws not becoming outlaws and then and other influences, etc., is the idea that your spouse and your children that's your family. Mm-hmm. Outside of your spouse and your children, everybody else has to have permission to be a part of your family. Mm-hmm. That includes mamas, daddies, aunties, brothers, siblings, whoever. They have to have permission to be a part of your unit, because as soon as you say I do, you created a new entity to say, hey, this is what is the rundown for the Masongo household. This is what we gonna do. Mm-hmm. If we decide we don't want to go to grandma's house for Christmas, we ain't gonna be at grandma's house. We going to Hawaii, because this is what we want to set the standard, the tradition. This is gonna be the tradition for our household. So that's I think the short way of kind of mm-hmm. helping people to understand how not to get a lot of insight from people who don't necessarily have a lot of wisdom on it, because it's hard to have somebody tell you how you're supposed to run your marriage if they've never been married.
Right. Or they ain't never been in your household, because a lot of times we'll ask for advice and you only give half of the story. Because if I'm gonna call my mom gonna be on my side, so I have to tell my mom when I was wrong or where I was wrong. I guess to tell her where he was wrong, so she could jump on my side and give me some advice based on the partial story that I give her. So you have to be careful, like, where you get advice from. Not to mention, the Bible says leave and cleave. So my mom and my dad and my uncle shouldn't be in my marriage. Mm-hmm. How we gonna make this thing work and grow when we got a whole bunch of other people in the middle of it? So you got to be careful, because that's why the Bible says that, because so many people, like my mother-in-law lives with us, but she's not in the middle of our marriage.
And then that goes also to how you handle conflict. So when we talk to our couples, we call ourselves Switzerland. We're the neutral country. And so we tell them like, hey, when stuff pops off, come to us before you go to your friends and your family, because when y'all make up,
they still gonna hate them.
They still gonna be mad. So they in their mind, they're like, oh, it's on site. I wish he would come to the family reunion.
Right. You like, y'all done made up, everything. And they was like, did he hit you? Talk about some, wait till he comes to the family. So you cause it, dissension when you didn't already made up, or you were mad about something that wasn't necessarily true, or you told the story, the slighted part of it that wasn't the real story. Because it'd be one story, like, I'm not an advocate of abuse or anything like that, but then you'd be like, he hit me, but you won't say you punched him in his face, or you'd be like, he pushed me. You'd be like, well, he pushed you off of him because you was punching him. Yeah. That's a different story. But it's one of those where sometimes the story gets told a little different, and then you get people on one side or the other, and then they never come off of, because your family is always gonna have your back.
And I'll say something too that might be a little dangerous, is the idea that your spouse comes before your family. So when it comes down to issues or problems, or hypothetically, if your parent doesn't like your pick, that as soon as you say I do, that's no longer their concern. Either they learn to love them or learn to leave them, because it's going to be you and your spouse as your family union. So, if my mama didn't like her, then I guess me and my mama ain't going to be talking, because once again, we are one. The two become one flesh. It's not, well, because, you can't get along with my mama. Me and you can't be together because you pray, because people be like, oh, I'm not gonna put my mama. But if I prayed and God gave me discernment, and that is my spouse, then maybe my mom has some issues that we need to work through, and that's the reason why she gave you that spouse, because maybe you're a mama's boy and your mom is intrusive in your relationship, and because she can no longer be that, those are some things, some boundaries that need to be set, that God was like, nah, I'm gonna give you this wife, and now y'all gonna have to work on this relationship over here. But people be like, well, my mama don't like her. Well, your mama should have met her before y'all got married, and if that was an issue, then y'all should have resolved that way before y'all got to the marriage table. Because some people, what you can handle. So in that case, if I meet his mom and she hates me and she shows that, and I know that that's not something that I can handle as a person, and I know that I need a mother-in-law that's going to be supportive, then he and I can't be together, because I know that is more than I can handle. Some people be like, well, look, I ain't worried about her. I'm married to him. But if I'm looking for a whole family unit, because maybe my mom is not there for me, or my mom is dead, and I'm looking for an extra mama. So I'm looking at this like, hey, when I marry him, now I get me another mama, and she don't like me. That's gonna hurt our relationship. So sometimes you can't force stuff. Yeah.
If you let's say you have an issue with his mom, right? Is it then his obligation to reconcile that or fix whatever that is with the mom? And by fix, that can mean either we got to part ways, or I'm going to bring you out to the table. What is it, his responsibility to fix it? Or do you, now that you're married, have a say in going to his mom and saying, we're not going to do this, right? Where is that boundary there? Or is there a boundary?
I think that's a great question. I think you allow that same family side, or that person that's the blood relative, whatever, take the lead on that discussion first, and then if need be, bring the other person to the table. But you allow that person to kind of take that lead initially, because once again, you want to make sure that you try to prevent drama, as opposed to kind of egging it on. So if my mom was tripping about something, I'm like, hey, mama, let's sit down, let's have this conversation, let's kind of handle this, as opposed to her coming in and and they get into a fist fight, and they wrestling in the middle of my living room.
Or she not believe, because if he don't speak up, then she gonna think it's me.
Yeah.
She gonna automatically be like, well, my son don't feel that way. My son ain't said nothing to me. You coming in here and you messing up our relationship. So then it it causes drama. So at the like sometimes you got to be like, mama, that's not right. Because what happens is, I've seen it time and time again where like it's his mom, but he's passive because he don't want to hurt his mom's feelings. But now you hurting your wife's feelings and your mom's feelings. You know what I'm saying? Because it's one of those where like you don't want to choose, but you gotta put on your big boy draws.
Yeah.
Put on your big boy draws, and you gotta have an uncomfortable conversation sometimes to make things right. Because at the end of the day, that leave and cleave, that's real.
Yeah.
That's a demand, that's scripture. So that's real. So you have to decide, like, if my mom is not going to be on board, and why. Because I think at the end of the day, we need to figure out why she's not on board.
Yeah.
Because is it a selfish reason? Is it like, hey, you're taking my child from me, or he's showing you more attention than he is me? Because that's what's supposed to happen.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what's supposed to happen. Or, you know, like, what is the issue? You know, so I think it's a conversation, and that's the reason why it's a pre-marital conversation, because then I can also have that conversation. If my mom don't like Mike, then we need to have a conversation, because is it legitimate or not? Because if it's legitimate, she might have some discernment that you don't have, because love is blind. Yeah. So is it legitimate? So you have real reasons why you feel like this relationship shouldn't be working. Or is it selfish? Because that makes a big difference in determining.
Yeah,
absolutely. So want to definitely respect the time. I see we only got a couple more minutes left. And so last question, if you could just bullet point for us some ways that you reinvent, respice up, and we're asking for a lot of the ratchet side to come in on this one too. How do you keep things fresh in the relationship, in the marriage?
Number one is date night. That is
Yes.
a mandate for
Yes.
for all couples that we talk to. And it's figuring out a consistent date night. For us is weekly. Our entire church knows when our date night is. They know it's
And the
Thursdays.
kids.
Yes, absolutely. They know, like, hey, come Thursday, don't bother us, because this is our, you know, this.
She'd be like,
date
if you
night.
gonna die, don't die on Thursday. I can't help you.
I'll come do the funeral on Friday.
Beautiful.
Thursday is gonna be you and Jesus.
Yeah.
So like I said, so it doesn't have to be weekly, but it should be something consistent.
And it doesn't have to cost money, because I think that that's important, because people be like, well, I didn't go out on a date because I didn't have money. Like, we've taken walks around the neighborhood. We've gone to the park. We've gone to Wendy's. It's a rough week. We gonna dollar menu. Look, stuff ain't $1 no more at Wendy's. You get a 4 for $4 though. You get you a 4 for $4. But you know, and we done got a 4 for $4 and split it. Let's be really real. Like, so, but it's one of those where you know, it's spending time with you no matter what that is. And people be like, well, I don't have babysitters. Well, once your kids go to sleep, then there is an allocated time. So if their bedtime is 8, our date night start at 8:30. We're going to watch a movie. We're going to eat together. We're going to talk. We might play a game. You know, we got the little Nintendo. We don't let the kids play it. You know, like the little one with the old games on it. Like, this is our game. Y'all can't play this. So, but it's just those little moments where we're spending with each other. And then there's date night rules. Yeah. Because we pastor a church. So we don't talk about church stuff. No church stuff during date night. No kids, no life, like none of that. No work, no life, no church. This is us. Like, and you know, like we always thinking about the kids. Like, women always thinking about the kids.
Yeah, y'all think about the kids.
And he does not, y'all. He does not. We go on vacation. I'm like, let me call the kids. He'd be like, them kids with my mama. She done raised kids. They all right. She raised me. I turned out all right. I was like, no, I got to check on my babies. But like, even like going to the mall, you know, women, you venture to the kids section because that's what you used to doing. Like, I ain't even allowed to go to the kids section in the mall. I ain't buy nothing for the kids. Think about the kids. None of that. This is between us. It's our time. So that is a very key thing. Whether you have kids or don't have kids, starting that date night you know, like we do it every week, but it can be weekly, it could be monthly, it could be, you know, as long as it's consistent. So it's not about the time or when, it's whether or not it's consistent. Because what is important to you. And I think that that's the best thing about it, is because if you don't make time for me, then I'm not important to you for real.
Yeah. And I think too, in terms of, you know, spicing things up, is we tend to tell couples have as much sex as is required for the person with the highest appetite. So if one person says, hey, I need it 5 days a week, the other person like, well, I only need it once a week or once a month, then the other person needs to get some Wheaties and some Gatorade.
Yeah, because you satisfied after one. They not.
Yeah, they still thirsty. And
Yeah,
so, and you don't want to send
them
nobody
out
out thirsty. So you need to quench that thirst.
Yeah.
You need to do some push-ups.
Get you some Wheaties.
Do some get insanity. Do something.
Yeah, like I'm telling you, we will always say that because they be like, so I have, because and it's normally the woman. Now, not always, but normally the woman be like, well, I only need it once. And I'll be like, well, then that means you already satisfied after that once. He not. So you got to make sure that you don't send him out, because that's why you have infidelity. You would not believe how many married couples don't have sex. Like we did a panel, like a discussion, and they was like, we ain't had sex in 6 months or a year. And I'll be like, where they do that at? Like,
right, that was a lot.
6 months. I'm like, so why not? And they be like, well, the kids. I'm like, man, we sneak in the bathroom, laundry room,
Yeah.
out the door. Like, get a lock on your door.
I tell all
kids
couples.
will be all right, but sometimes you get 5 minutes in. Like, no kids be all right for 5 minutes.
Like, I put all couples on game. The day after Halloween is when you go to the Halloween store and get you some half-price outfits. And they're gonna go on sale. They trying to get up, so you get you a She-Ra
outfit.
Uh-huh.
Whatever you like.
Y'all can be
If you like that.
She-Ra.
Some officers and cat soups.
You can be Bert and Ernie. It don't even matter. Whatever
you like.
You can knock yourself out. And I think also just kind of, like I said, like just kind of reminding each other that y'all sexy. Like, shout out to my girl Catrice, who does Lady Kisha's hair. She sends her home. I get a different woman, every couple of weeks. So she helps to, whether it's Janet one week or Hallie the next. I'm like, all right, let's go get it. I get to have a mistress in my house. And so it's just, like I said, I think it's little things that you learn to do, particularly the longer that you are together. Because, I think that mindset or the culture thought process that, oh man, you plan on being with the same person
like,
for the rest of your
old.
life, and it's gonna get old and tired. It's like, no,
spice it up, do some new stuff.
It's what you bring to the table.
They sell position books. You could get it from the library. You could go rent you a book with some positions. Spice it up, because I'm telling you, because people, Christians especially, you want to be embarrassed. Like, no, like it's like the marriage bed is undefiled. Like we could try some new stuff. Like some new positions. You get you some oils and some good stuff.
And I think part of it is that's when it's a spiritual thing, because when you're single, you got all kinds of ideas. But as soon as people get married, then all of a sudden now you draw
like,
blank.
this boring. You're like, well, why is it? But whose fault is that?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I'm an advocate. Like, if I'm not doing it right, then tell me how to do it. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not satisfied, you shouldn't be married for 20 years and be unsatisfied.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you don't talk. So communication is key. Like what you like. If you like outfits, tell them. If you don't like outfits, tell them. If you like lingerie, if you like it naked, like y'all got to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to be turned on by what I like. Right. But if I don't know, if he don't know what I like, or I don't know what he like, how we going to make it work?
I'll find a place to fill that void.
Yeah. So then you be like, be funny. Be like, I wanted you to send me a boob picture, but you wouldn't send me a picture of your boob. So you just like down the street, send me a picture of her boob, and then I didn't get caught up. You'd be like, but if you would have told me.
Yeah, and then at the same time, if you send the boob picture, make sure you delete it later. If you got kids, other people.
Look.
And iCloud.
Yeah, they're talking mommy. And then you'd be like, well, let's have a conversation about being married and what that means. So yeah, but I think like making sure it's spicy. Also, a book that we would recommend is The Love Dare. Mm-hmm. So because if it gives you ideas, you don't have to come up with your own. Yeah. So if you feel like it's getting a little stale or it's getting a little redundant, then you can do that. And then there are like sites and stuff that's like date night in Cincinnati, free stuff to do in the summer, like all of that, where you can actually Google and find new ideas. So because it does get redundant if you only go to dinner and a movie all the time. Yeah. Then you be like, well, that's what we gonna do. Spice it up and surprise each other. Like, so like if she always doing the date nights, then you grab a couple. Or she always got to find babysitters for the kids. So it's kind of like one of those where you be like, well, this is a hassle because I always got to do this. Like, take turns helping out with different things so it doesn't feel like a chore going on a day. It's like, I'm looking forward to this.
Yes. Excellent.
That's good. That's good.
Excellent. So, yeah, we appreciate y'all for spending this time with us, having this conversation and giving advice, not just to us, but anybody watching. We definitely look to y'all as an example couple, goals, if you will.
Yes.
And so we appreciate y'all spending this time with us.
Yeah, no, just thank you so much. Our goal is to start having more of these conversations because we want marriage to be a goal again, right? And so we love each other, but we want to spread that out into the world. And so we definitely thank you for being one of those positive role models here in the city.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yes,
Definitely appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thanks for inviting us.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good one.
All right, you too.
All right. Bye.